Whitbread, it's been going as a company for over 270 years. Originally a brewer, so it produced beer and sold beer through pubs and in supermarkets in the UK and in some overseas markets for over 200 years. And now we don't have any brewing interests at all. Totally out of brewing and pubs. And Whitbread now consists of 3 business units. One is hotels, and the main hotel brand is Premier Inn. Then restaurants, and we've got 4 or 5 restaurant chains. Beefeater, Table, Tay-Barnes being the big 3. And then Costa. Now Costa is roughly a third of Whitbread's turnover, about 40% of Whitbread's profit. And Costa itself was acquired by Whitbread back in 1995. And then Whitbread bought the business when it was a decent sized wholesaler with around about 40 coffee shops, all of them in London. Today, you wind the clock on to 2013, and we've got 3,000 coffee shops in 30 countries. We've got 3,500 Costa Express machines. We've got 4,000 distribution points for our wholesale business. And we've got a fledgling retail business in a partnership with Mondelez.
2.5 years ago, Costa buys Coffee Nation. Coffee Nation is a fresh bean-to-cup vending business. So this is not powdered coffee, this is not capsules. This is taking beans with fresh milk and attempting in a semi-attended environment to serve people a reasonably good cup of coffee. Or as Scott Martin, the founder of Coffee Nation, said, to break the paradigm of hot and wet.
The perception of vending, well, all over the world, the UK in particular, was that vending coffee is not going to be good quality, therefore I'm not going to pay a premium price for it. Add to the fact that we weren't a brand, add to the fact that we were a startup. So the notion of Coffee Nation was, let's go and put unmanned coffee bars. We didn't like or use the word vending. Let's go and put unmanned coffee bars into non-traditional locations.
Coffee Nation at the time was the world leader in this. Scott had spent 13 years building the business, and at the time we had our first meeting, there were 830 machines in the field, predominantly in the UK, in forecourts and gas stations. Costa buys the company and says, we did the due diligence, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, did their reports. The question is, did we really get what we thought we got? Look at the supply chain, and all of a sudden you say, this is a business doing 20, 30 million in revenues. And what can you do with this? Is it scalable? Could it be taken internationally? What could you do with this? In the course of the due diligence, we said, hey, this isn't a 20, 30 million business. This is a £1 billion business. And Starbucks just confirmed it's actually 27, so we were a little bit modest in our expectations.
The reality was that when we took out a Coffee Nation machine post-acquisition, we replaced it with Costa, sales instantly went up by 30%, irregardless of whether it was 100 cups a day or 30 cups a day. So a £30 million business grew by 30% overnight. Over the course of the 2007-2008, we was installing as Coffee Nation about 150 machines a year. In the 6 months after acquisition, we installed and converted 300 machines a month for 2 years. The business went from 800 to 2,500, 30 million to 130 million. All of that is pre-Marlow.
So if you were the guys in the M&A team, you were very, very happy. You did an acquisition, CFO's happy, Costa's happy, everybody's happy. You just did an acquisition of a successful business. You got a happy entrepreneur who's still got a lockup. Wants to make this happen. You've already made your numbers on the rebranding. Jim has just taken over the business. And it's a goal. The ball's sitting in front of the net. This is going to be all right no matter what you do. Actually, many people would say, take it, don't mess it up.
To be honest, it wouldn't be the end of the world for Whitbread if we didn't do Project Marlow. You know, life would go on. We would still build new hotels. We would still open new coffee shops. But the great thing is that there was more than a flicker of interest in the PLC to do something exciting and different here. Whitbread had a new chief exec, a guy called Andy Harrison, who's very, very good on customer focus and innovation. And at the time when Andy came in, believe it or not, Whitbread hadn't filed a patent since 1991. So with a new chief exec coming in, who has always been very supportive of this, the time was good, it's in great health. The existing fleet of machines are working brilliantly. We are delivering profits ahead of investor expectations. So we used that as the trampoline, the springboard to build the business. There's a restlessness which wants to move on and make things bigger and better.
We know that if we want to make a step change in our turnover, we have to really take this point head on. You know, when we looked back, we recognised that Coffee Nation was a disruptive innovation. I don't think we realised that at the time, but what we were doing was turning vending on its head. So if we started with disruptive innovation, why don't we do that again? I was really encouraging Costa and Whitbread's management to say, if we really want to stay ahead, this is not about doing a little incremental change. That's what the competitors will do. So making small changes was easy, and I was paranoid and encouraged paranoia within Costa to say, let's think like we're number two. Even though we haven't got anyone in the space, let's think like we've got some competitive threat.
Now to go and start a project where somebody comes along and says, this is great, 850 machines, let's go do this completely differently and do something in a completely different way. It takes a huge amount of personal strength, open-mindedness, risk-taking, sense for people, trust. We're going to pull together a team of the best people in the world. Now, this is quite difficult because you're in a large organization that has people in their roles with vested interests and bonuses attached. And now you're going to come and take the most important new project, move it out, and on an objective level say, in order to get the Marlow tag on your shirt, you have to be the best in the world. This puts the bar very high. So in fact, we started bringing people into the mix that had never touched Costa or Whitbread.
The world-class team which was assembled, and we're talking C-suite level at places like Intel, Pininfarina, B Squared, you know, big multinational companies, way bigger in scale than humble little Whitbread. You know, this week we had dinner with you know, C-suite guys at Intel, and that's par for the course during the course of Project Marlow. And frankly, it's not the normal way that Whitbread does business, and it would have been slower, and the project I don't think would have happened if we'd confined ourselves to the normal way of doing things at Whitbread.
The first stage was to get to an alpha prototype, meaning we wanted to deliver something and prove that we could build a machine that would serve coffee at the requisite level of quality. We then wanted to refine it to what we called a beta prototype, which brought us to 90 to 95% of functionality. We wanted to get within 95% of your best barista, and we wanted to add a twist. And the twist was we wanted it to be a fully immersive experience, meaning that that 1 square meter on the floor would bring you as close as possible as you could be to a Costa Cafe. So this meant that we had to go to the basics of psychology and bring us into what we call a full 5-sense immersive user experience, where it was about sight, scent, hearing, touch, and taste. And this meant using that as a guide or a framework to pull the best people in the world to work on each one of those. When you look at the machine, You're dazzled by the incredible sculptured lines of Pininfarina. When it came to sound, we wanted the best, so we went to the sound technician who mixes for Coldplay, U2, the Rolling Stones. When it was about touch, the touch screen, we went to the top digital signage company in Europe, and we combined it with the guys who did Harry Potter graphics. We wanted to add natural scent to the machine, meaning that we would disperse the same molecules, scent molecules that you would have in a Costa Cafe, the tea, the leather chairs, everything that you would enjoy, the wood, the chocolate, everything except the coffee, because the coffee smells great on its own. And essentially start to create an experience as you approach this machine from different distances. And so it's a completely different mandate. This has never been done in vending before. We decided we were going to do it extremely quickly. We were going to deliver a product from first meeting into production. Low rate initial production for us at the time was 200 units per year in 6 months. To do that, it assumes something that is the moniker of Marlow is FTR, first time right. Anything and everything you do, you have to do perfectly the first time at light speed. One of the things that Jim Slater accomplished, which was a key success factor of Project Marlow, was at the corporate level to maintain enough space around this team that was in the field with, jumping off of helicopters with guns raised, to create enough space that it could operate with relative freedom. I could tell you stories where completing contracts took longer than the entire project. So if you're forced to operate at one speed, you cannot achieve these things.
This is clearly a very, very different way of operating compared to what Whitbread has been really successful in doing over the past 270-something years. And it's fair to say that there would be a risk that Marlow would not have happened if it had been attached to the normal corporate modus operandi. And we, the three of us actually coined an expression, seek forgiveness, not permission. Because the simple fact is that if we had gone back up to the PLC board with every single contract that we signed or didn't sign, with every single meaningful step of the process, it would have been too slow.
All of a sudden you get demand, and the demand exceeds 200 units per year. And for anybody here who's ramped production, very often ramping production is even more difficult than developing the product. And so from March until September 16th, just passed, we've ramped production from 200 units per year to an excess of 10,000 units per year. And the production is up and running. And so it's been a very intense, exciting, fun, passionate process. The prospect of building 2,000 machines at that time, when there were 830 in the field after 13 years, was, let's say, was an aggressive statement to make. And in fact, the expectations were that the production would be somewhere between 200 and 2,000 machines over the entire life of the Marlow program. I think one of the things that was truly important about Marlow is that Marlow is not a project, it's actually an identity. The members of the team are the best, and they were also challenged successively through the stages of the project to limits that they hadn't been challenged before. On the inside of every Marlow machine are the names engraved of the 38 people who really made it happen. And to have your name engraved on the machine, you had to make an enduring and extraordinary contribution above and beyond the call of duty. And this has created a level of related, because you had to work very hard to get there, and that you're associated with a limited elite group of people that starts to take on a culture and a meaning of its own.
of course, it's been risky. It's still risky. You know, there's, there are frequently occasions when I get some hostile questions. You know, some fairly difficult grillings have been had, and I'm sure will continue to be had over the course of Marlow. The great thing is that at the very start of the project, we had a budget, we had the defined process that Eric talked about, going from alpha to beta to low rate initial production, LRIP. Each time we've delivered on time, on budget, and there's some amazing coverage from outside of Whitbread about what we've achieved. And that all helps.